Welcome to the last tutorial for our NPC dialogue. Let's get started with some cleanup script. We've got a few more things to do before this system is foolproof. Let's start from the content folder, over to blueprints, over to NPCs, over to NPC base. I'll draw your attention to the in conversation boolean. We've set it as true as we've entered the conversation, but we also need to set it as false when we're out of the conversation. So I'll also bring your attention to this line here, progress dialog, where we are adding to the line index continuously, but we need that to be at 0 again when we start a brand new conversation. Holding Alt, drag in line index, and holding Alt, drag in conversation. They need to be false and 0 respectively. So let's plug that in there. And over here in our end conversation, we plug them in between fade 1 and fade 2. Doesn't matter which order, I'm just going to put them over here at the end of clearing our dialogue. Just like that, which means that we will be able to have more than one conversation by resetting everything back to its neutral state. If we didn't do that, then we couldn't enter the conversation again. It would kind of loop itself right back out, which if you've been testing it out between tutorials, you would have witnessed. So there's the first bit of script we need to do. Let's compile and save that. Next up, I want to do a script specifically for if we walk away from the NPC, because at the moment we do have the ability to walk around while we're talking to them. But when we leave this dialog box, that's when we want to leave the conversation. So let's go and open NPC interaction. And at the end of our on-component end overlap, we want to get parent actor and cast to NPC base again. The same as we did here for when we enter our conversation. So out of that casting, we will call an event called walk away, but we can't call that event until we create it. Back to NPC base. Let's right click custom event and we'll call this walk away. So there it is, compile and save over to NPC interaction. Now when we drag out of NPC base and we type in walk away, we should get that function event. That's all we need to do for NPC interaction for this episode. Compile and save that. Now the walkaway script is going to replicate almost everything we do in the end conversation script, except the camera fades. First off, we don't want to do anything if we're not in a conversation. So hold Control, drag in conversation, get a branch and plug that in there. So we're checking to see if we are in a conversation, because we could enter this dialog box and then leave it without ever entering the conversation. We still have to make a prompt there. So once we've confirmed we're in the conversation, we're going to grab remove parent, clear dialog. We'll grab setting in conversation to false, line index to 0, and our HUD reference to visible, and stop just short of the second camera fade. We'll copy that and paste it down here. We could just call end conversation, but that means we're going to disable input and end up with camera fades when we're just walking away from the conversation, which isn't necessary. We want that leaving conversation to be rather seamless. We'll compile and save that and do a little test. Let's hop over to the test map, hit play. And if I was to press E, enter the conversation, and then walk away, we'll just skip the camera fade and put our HUD back on screen. And as per our setting in conversation to false and line actual to 0, when I walk back in here and press E again, the conversation will start again. Which brings me to the next script I want to introduce you to. We are going to do missions eventually, but I'm not sure how soon we're going to do missions. I want to do merchants after this one. So let's set up a quick little test script for progressing lines of dialogue. Let's go over to B_hero, find a blank canvas, preferably next to all of your other test script. You can see I've got all of my other test script all together, and it's quite easy to identify because it doesn't have an official name like input action jump from the input settings. So over here in my little test bed, I'm going to right click and get a key. I will get the T key. Doesn't always pop up straight away, so I'll scroll up and get T. Next up, I want to get all actors of class. And with the dropdown, I want to get all NPC underscore base actors. Once I have them all, I want to hold F, click anywhere for a for each loop so we can plug the array into the array. Then I want to cast directly to them. So cast to NPC base. Plug that into the loop body. Next up, I want to get conversation index. And I just want to add 1 to that. So instead of getting conversation index and then setting conversation index as we did before, let's use that double plus node again, the increment integer, just to keep things clean. Plug that in there. And that's all we really need to progress that dialog. Let's go and test that now. Compile and save. Hit play. I'm going to walk up to our NPC. And we'll start the prerequisites not met conversation. I'll walk away from him, press the T key, walk up to him again. And now we're at the give missions script. And I will press E to end that conversation instead of walking away this time. Ideally, walking away from a conversation won't give you the missions in future. So that wouldn't happen in that order. You would actually have to progress through all the dialogue to get it. And now on to our final thing to do. You can see here that I've already done a little test script to get it working. But I will delete this so we can start from the beginning. So up here in our NPC base, let's click on add component, get a sphere. Sphere collision will do. It's going to say sphere 1 because I already had a sphere here before. So with this sphere, let's go over to the viewport. Let's drag it over here. We don't want to be outside of this box though, because what we want to do with this sphere is use it to get its location so that we can teleport the player there so that the player is the right distance away from the NPC for the dialogue to look its best, and we'll also adjust rotation. So let's compile that. So we want to do this in our start conversation script, and we can do it anywhere between the camera fades as we've done before. So I'll just put this at the very end after set visibility for our HUD to false. So let's set actor location. The actor in question is our reference hero, and the new location is going to be sphere 1, get location. Get world location, not relative location. And we'll plug there. We'll click the teleport button. Sweep is for if we need to consider collisions, making sure that we're taking them into account so that we can actually do the teleport. But ideally, the space in front of your NPC won't be an issue. Now, the next one's a little bit trickier because right now, if we teleport, we'll keep our rotation. I'll show you that in action. Once I plug this in, let's end of visibility and beginning of the camera fade. Compile, save, walk up to our NPC, and if I was to get really up in his face and face over this way, when I press E, the conversation starts and I've teleported to the right location, but I'm still facing the wrong way. So the way to fix that is to adjust our rotation, but we can't just adjust our actor rotation. Remember, when we're moving, we're not actually using our actor's rotation. We're using our controller's rotation. So here's how to get around that. Get player controller. With our player controller, let's get control rotation, which is going to give us a rotator out. But then out of that player controller, let's also set control rotation. So the difference between what our current rotation is and what we want our rotation to be is going to be breaking the rotator, dragging out of set control rotation. We want to make rotator. X and Y will be the same. No change there. It's the Z or your rotation that we need to change. We're getting that from our get actor rotation, which will get the rotation of this actor that we are in, which is our NPC base. We will drag out of that and break rotator. And all we need is the Z axis. If we plug this straight in though, our current rotation is facing this way. We don't want to be facing this way. We want to be facing the opposite of whatever our NPC base is. The opposite of whatever it is would be 180 degrees. So drag out of the yaw of our get actor rotation. Let's get a negative float minus float, and we will set that to 180. So whatever this rotation is, we will set it to minus 180, which will rotate our character to face the right way. So that is how we get around facing the right way. I'll just do a little bit of cleanup. Plugging in our set actor location into set control rotation and set control rotation back down to our camera fade. That cleanup took a little bit longer than usual, but future me will thank me later when I come back here to fix any potential problems and it's all working. So let's go and test that out. Compile and save over to the test map. Let's hit play. Let's also press T twice just for the hell of it, because we'll enter another conversation. Walking up to our NPC, ignoring that our enemy wants to chase us from our last tutorial. I will walk up to the NPC, but I will purposely face away from him. And when I press E, it changes the rotation and sets the location so that I am having the conversation with the NPC. Obviously, this character isn't to scale. This is just a placeholder, so they would be more or less eye level. It might also be worth going over to that script again, and rather than just taking whatever our pitch is, because our role's not going to matter. Our role is pretty much going to stay the same. But maybe setting pitch to 0 would be a good idea, because now if I walk up to them and face up, then that's going to bring me back down. On second thought, do we even need this script here? On the fly tutorials, let's go. So maybe if we kill both of them, because we're never going to do anything with roll. We just want to zero things out. So let's see what happens now. One final test. Pressing E, and it works just fine. So sorry about that. Disregard our initial player controller rotation. But if you did need to set these two, if they were being problematic, at least you have that. So we'll just get rid of that. So that'll work just fine. And that's pretty much it. I will reiterate that this script here in our B_hero is only for testing purposes, because in future the missions will set the appropriate NPC conversation index. So when you complete a mission, the NPC will check at what stage that mission is at and give you the correct dialogue. But we'll do that in a mission system. Next time, I think we're going to tackle merchants, because as much as that is somewhat reasonably easy to understand, it's a bit of a pain to do all that scripting. So we'll tackle that next, but I will see you guys in the next episode.